Most people believe influence starts when you open your mouth. They think the right words, the right tone, or the right confidence trick will make others listen. That belief is wrong. Influence begins long before you speak. If your thinking is scattered, your words will feel uncertain. If your mind is unclear, your voice will carry hesitation. And when people sense hesitation, they don't follow, they disengage. This is why so many intelligent people struggle to be taken seriously. They know a lot, they feel deeply, they talk often, but they don't command attention. Not because they lack knowledge, but because their thinking lacks structure. Professionals understand something most people never learn. How you think determines how you speak. How you speak determines how you are perceived, and how you are perceived determines how much influence you have. This audiobook is not about sounding smarter. It's about becoming clearer. Because clarity is what people trust, not excitement, not volume, not emotional intensity. Think about the people who truly influence you. They don't rush their words. They don't explain themselves endlessly. They don't argue to win. They pause. They choose their words carefully. And when they speak, it feels deliberate. That feeling doesn't come from talent. It comes from trained thinking. Most people speak from reaction. Professionals speak from intention. Most people talk to release emotion. Professionals talk to move outcomes. And the difference between the two is not personality. It's discipline. In a world full of noise, influence belongs to those who can stay calm. In conversations full of opinions, power belongs to those who can think in principles. And in rooms where everyone is trying to be heard, leadership belongs to the one who doesn't need to speak much at all. This audiobook will teach you how to build that kind of presence. Not by giving you scripts, not by teaching manipulation, and not by asking you to become someone you're not. Instead, you'll learn how professionals train their minds to stay clear under pressure, how they structure their thoughts before they ever speak, how they remove weak language that quietly destroys authority, and how they influence others without forcing, chasing, or proving anything. You'll learn how to think in a way that naturally sharpens your speech, how to speak in a way that makes people lean in, and how to influence without raising your voice or lowering your standards. This is not motivation. This is training. Because influence is not an emotion, it's a skill. And like any real skill, it must be practiced deliberately. Throughout this audiobook, each chapter will focus on one core ability. You'll identify the habits that weaken your communication. You'll replace them with principles professionals rely on. And you'll practice small, precise shifts that compound into authority over time. Nothing here is dramatic, nothing here is loud, and nothing here is accidental. If you're looking for quick tricks, this is not for you. But if you want to think with clarity, speak with weight, and influence with calm confidence, you're in the right place. You don't need to dominate conversations. You don't need to impress anyone, and you don't need to talk more. You need to think better, and once your thinking becomes disciplined, your words will carry weight without effort. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Think in principles, not opinions. Most people move through life guided by opinions. They speak from what they feel, what they assume, or what they recently heard. Their thoughts shift with mood, environment, and pressure. And because their thinking shifts, their words never fully land. Professionals don't operate from opinions. They operate from principles. An opinion is reactive. It changes when emotions change. It bends when approval is at stake. A principle, on the other hand, is steady. It holds its shape even when the room becomes tense. When you speak from opinion, people sense instability. Your language feels tentative. Your tone sounds negotiable. Even if your logic is correct, your presence feels uncertain. But when you speak from principle, something subtle happens. Your voice slows. Your sentences shorten. Your words carry weight without effort. Because principles don't seek permission. They establish direction. Most people ask themselves, "What do I think right now?" Professionals ask, "What rule applies here?" That difference separates reaction from leadership. Think back to a moment when you were challenged unexpectedly. A difficult question, a disagreement, a moment of pressure. If your response came from opinion, you likely rushed to explain. You defended your position. You filled the silence with extra words. That wasn't a lack of intelligence. It was a lack of internal structure. Principle-based thinkers don't scramble when challenged. They don't chase arguments. They return to their foundation. Instead of reacting to personalities, they respond to principles. Instead of debating details, they anchor the conversation. Instead of trying to win, they clarify direction. This is why they appear calm even under stress. Opinions want validation. Principles create trust. Here is a hard truth most people avoid. If your thinking is emotional, your speech will be unstable, and unstable speech cannot lead anyone. Influence begins with internal order, not charisma, not volume, order. That order comes from knowing what you stand on before you ever speak. A principle is not a catchy phrase. It's a rule you return to when things become uncomfortable. Examples are simple but powerful. Clarity is more important than speed. Truth matters more than harmony. Long-term respect outweighs short-term comfort. When pressure appears, professionals don't invent responses. They select from principles they've already trained. This is why they don't hesitate. They don't need to find their voice. They already know where it comes from. Most people collect opinions from headlines, conversations, and emotions. Professionals reduce complexity. They choose a small set of principles and sharpen them relentlessly. They don't need many principles. They need them clear. If you want stronger influence, stop asking what you think. Start defining what you stand on. Because when you stand on principles, your presence changes. Your posture becomes steady. Your pauses feel intentional. Your words sound final, not aggressive, not arrogant, final. This is the difference between sounding confident and being trusted. Now, let's make this practical. Choose one situation in your life where speaking feels difficult. It could be a meeting, a boundary you avoid setting, a recurring conflict, a decision you hesitate to communicate. Ask yourself one question. What principle should guide me here? Not what sounds polite, not what avoids discomfort. What principle keeps you aligned? Write it down in one sentence. Short, clear, non-negotiable. That sentence becomes your anchor. The next time that situation appears, you don't search for the right words. You return to the rule. This is why professionals sound composed. They're not improvising under pressure, they're executing clarity. Most people try to improve communication by practicing words. They memorize phrases. They rehearse responses. Professionals work at a deeper level. They refine thinking. Words are the output. Principles are the system. If the system is weak, no amount of polished language will save it. This approach doesn't make you rigid. It makes you grounded. You can adjust your tone, you can adapt your phrasing, but you don't abandon your principles to fit the room. Because the room doesn't need more opinions. It needs direction. Think less about what you want to say. Think more about what must remain true. That is where influence begins. When you stop borrowing opinions and start standing on principles, people feel it immediately. They may not agree with you, but they will listen. And listening is the doorway to influence. Build your principles first. Your words will follow. Chapter 2. Control your inner dialogue. Every word you speak is shaped by a voice that speaks long before your mouth opens. That voice is your inner dialogue. Most people ignore it. They let it run unchecked, and then they wonder why their words come out hesitant, rushed, or uncertain. Professionals do not ignore their inner dialogue. They train it. Because if you don't control the voice inside your head, it will control the voice others hear. Inner dialogue is the silent commentary that interprets every situation. It decides whether you feel confident or defensive, whether you stay calm or rush to fill silence, whether you speak with clarity or collapse into explanation. When that dialogue is weak, your speech becomes weak, even if the words sound right on the surface. Most people's inner dialogue sounds like this. What if I'm wrong? Maybe I should soften this. I don't want to sound rude. I hope they don't push back. That internal hesitation leaks outward. People hear it in your tone. They see it in your posture. They feel it in your pacing. And once hesitation is felt, influence disappears. Professionals replace emotional inner dialogue with disciplined commands. They don't ask themselves, "How do I feel?" They ask, "What matters right now?" That shift is everything. Inner dialogue should not be a debate. It should be direction. When pressure hits, most people negotiate with themselves. They question, they doubt, they second guess. Professionals issue instructions. Slow down, speak clearly, state the point, stop talking. This is not arrogance, it is self-leadership. If you cannot lead your own mind, you cannot lead a conversation. Notice what happens when you walk into a situation already arguing with yourself. Your energy scatters, your attention splits, your words lose precision. But when your inner dialogue is calm and firm, your external communication stabilizes. Calm does not come from confidence tricks. It comes from clarity inside your own head. Most people believe confidence is something you feel. Professionals know confidence is something you practice internally. They practice shutting down useless mental noise. They practice narrowing focus. They practice speaking to themselves with authority. Here's a reality few people accept. You teach others how to treat your words by how you treat them internally. If you doubt yourself before speaking, others will sense it. If you over-explain internally, you will over-explain aloud. If you rush in your thoughts, you will rush in your speech. Inner dialogue sets the tempo. Professionals slow the tempo deliberately. They replace anxious self-talk with clear internal rules. Rules like, one point at a time, say it once. Silence is allowed, clarity over comfort. These rules run quietly in the background. They don't consume energy, they conserve it. This is why professionals rarely sound flustered. They've already settled the conversation inside themselves. Let's make this practical. Pay attention to your inner dialogue the next time you feel pressure to speak. A meeting, a disagreement, a moment when eyes turn toward you. Notice the words running in your head. Are they emotional? Are they apologetic? Are they rushed? Now interrupt them. Replace them with one internal command. Not a sentence. A command. Slow, clear, finish. That single command is often enough to reset your presence. You don't need motivational phrases. You need control. Inner dialogue should be simple, direct, and functional. Professionals do not hype themselves up. They stabilize themselves. They don't say, "You've got this." They say, "Focus." They don't say, "Be confident." They say, "Speak clearly." Confidence is a byproduct of control, not the other way around. Another critical shift professionals make is this. They stop rehearsing reactions. Most people replay possible outcomes in their minds. They imagine objections. They anticipate judgment. They argue with imaginary people. That mental rehearsal creates tension before the conversation even begins. Professionals don't do that. They prepare principles. They prepare structure. They let go of imaginary resistance. Because you cannot control how others respond. You can only control how clearly you speak. When your inner dialogue accepts that, pressure drops instantly. You stop performing. You start expressing. This chapter is about reclaiming mental authority. Your inner voice should not be chaotic. It should be trained. You wouldn't let an untrained person run a meeting. So stop letting untrained thoughts run your speech. Control begins internally. When your inner dialogue is steady, your outer communication follows. When your mind stops racing, your words stop rushing. When your internal commands are clear, your external influence becomes natural. You don't need to silence your thoughts completely. You need to lead them. Because the most influential people are not those who think the most. They are those who think the clearest, and clarity always starts on the inside. Chapter 3. Speak from structure, not emotion. Most people speak the moment a thought appears. They feel something, then release it through words. That's why their communication feels scattered. That's why they lose control of conversations without realizing when it happened. Professionals do the opposite. They don't speak from emotion. They speak from structure. Emotion is fast. Structure is deliberate. When emotion leads, words rush ahead of meaning. Sentences overlap. Ideas blur together. The listener has to work to keep up. And when people have to work to understand you, they stop listening. Structure removes that burden. Structure means your thoughts arrive in an order that makes sense to others, not just to you, not just in your head. Most people assume clarity is about intelligence. It's not. It's about organization. You can have a brilliant idea and lose influence if you deliver it without structure. You can have an average idea and gain influence if you deliver it cleanly. Professionals understand this. They don't ask, "How do I say this?" They ask, "What is the sequence?" Sequence creates authority. When you speak from structure, your words feel intentional, your pauses feel controlled, your message feels complete. Even if someone disagrees, they respect the delivery. Emotion-driven speech feels different. It loops, it backtracks, it adds unnecessary details to justify itself. That's not passion, that's insecurity leaking through language. Structure eliminates the need to defend. Here is a simple truth. If you don't know where your sentence is going, neither does your listener. Professionals never start speaking without knowing 3 things. What is the point? Why does it matter? What should happen next? That's it. They don't memorize speeches, they memorize structure. One idea, one direction, one outcome. This is why their communication feels clean. Emotion clouds this process. When you're emotional, you want to say everything at once. You want to be understood immediately. You want to prevent misunderstanding before it happens. So you overload your message. Professionals resist that urge. They trust the structure to carry the meaning. They allow space. They allow silence. They allow the listener to catch up. That restraint is power. Most people think structure sounds rigid. They fear it will make them sound robotic. The opposite is true. Structure gives you freedom. When the framework is clear, your delivery becomes calm. Your tone relaxes. Your body language settles. Because you're no longer improvising under pressure. Think of structure like a spine. It holds everything upright. Without it, everything collapses into noise. Here is the simplest structure professionals rely on. Context, point, outcome. Context sets the frame. The point delivers the meaning. The outcome tells people what to do with it. Most people skip context. They jump straight into emotion. Professionals never do. They anchor first. For example, instead of saying, "I'm frustrated because this keeps happening," a structured speaker says, "We've encountered the same issue 3 times this month. Here's what needs to change." Same emotion, different impact. Structure removes drama without removing strength. Another mistake people make is speaking while still thinking. They discover their ideas out loud. That's not communication. That's processing. Professionals separate the two. They think first. They speak second. This doesn't require long preparation. It requires discipline. A few seconds of internal organization can save minutes of explanation. Before you speak, ask yourself, what is the first sentence? What is the last sentence? If you can't answer that, you're not ready to talk. That pause is not weakness, it's precision. Listeners feel it immediately. They sense when someone knows where they're going, and they trust it. Structure also protects you under pressure. When challenged emotionally, most people abandon clarity. They react to tone instead of content. They mirror aggression or defensiveness. Professionals return to structure. They restate the point. They slow the pace. They remove unnecessary words. Structure becomes a stabilizer. This is why they rarely escalate conflicts. They de-escalate through clarity. They don't match emotion. They redirect attention. That is influence. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you need to say something important, write it in 3 lines. Line 1, context. Line 2, point. Line 3, outcome. No extra words, no explanation. Then speak only from that. You'll notice something immediately. Your voice becomes steadier. Your sentences shorten. Your presence strengthens. Because structure removes doubt. Emotion asks for understanding. Structure earns respect. This chapter is not asking you to suppress emotion. It's asking you to lead it. Emotion can energize your message, but structure must direct it. Otherwise, your words will run faster than your meaning. When you speak from structure, people don't just hear you, they follow you, and that is the foundation of influence. Chapter 4. Use fewer words. Carry more weight. Most people believe that influence comes from saying more explanations, more details, more justification. So they keep talking. They add sentences to be understood. They add examples to feel safe. They add words to avoid silence. And without realizing it, they dilute their own authority. Professionals do the opposite. They say less. Not because they lack ideas, but because they understand a critical truth. Weight does not come from volume. It comes from precision. Every unnecessary word weakens a message. Every extra sentence lowers tension. Every attempt to explain too much signals uncertainty. When people talk too much, listeners stop listening. Not out of disrespect, but out of overload. The human mind responds to clarity, not quantity. Professionals know this. They choose their words carefully because they understand that words are signals, and signals lose power when they are repeated. Think about the people whose words you remember. They don't speak often. But when they do, the room shifts. That shift happens because silence prepared the ground. Most people are afraid of silence. They interpret it as awkwardness, rejection, or failure. Professionals interpret silence differently. They see it as space. Space gives words room to land. When you speak less, people listen more. When you pause, people lean in. When you stop explaining, people start thinking. This is not manipulation. It's human psychology. Words gain power when they are scarce. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to preempt every objection. They talk through all possibilities. They defend themselves before being challenged. This doesn't make them sound prepared. It makes them sound unsure. Professionals allow disagreement to exist. They don't rush to neutralize it. They state their point. Then they stop. That pause communicates confidence more clearly than any explanation ever could. There is a reason strong leaders rarely speak in long paragraphs. They use short sentences, clear statements, defined boundaries. Not because they are simplistic, but because they are decisive. Decisiveness does not need decoration. Another reason people overtalk is emotional leakage. When you are emotionally invested, you want to make sure you are understood. You want validation. You want agreement. So you keep talking. Professionals separate emotion from delivery. They may feel strongly, but they speak cleanly. They know that emotion is felt through tone, not through extra words. If your point is strong, it doesn't need repetition. If your idea is solid, it doesn't need defense. Fewer words force you to choose what matters. They expose weak thinking. They demand clarity. That's why this skill feels uncomfortable at first. Talking less removes your safety net. You can't hide behind explanations. You can't soften your position with qualifiers. You must commit. Professionals commit. They understand that influence requires risk. The risk of being misunderstood. The risk of being challenged. The risk of standing alone for a moment. And they accept it because they trust the weight of their thinking. Here's a practical shift. The next time you speak, aim to say one sentence less than you normally would. Just one. Stop earlier. Leave space. Notice what happens. Most of the time, people will respond instead of resist. They will ask questions instead of tuning out. They will engage instead of drifting because you gave them room. Another powerful practice is this. Say your point once, not twice, not 3 times in different forms. Once. If it's important, you can return to it later, but repeating it immediately weakens its impact. Professionals trust their words enough to let them stand alone. They also remove weak fillers from their language. Phrases like, I think, maybe, kind of, just. These words soften responsibility. They create escape routes. Strong communication doesn't need escape routes. That doesn't mean being aggressive. It means being clear. I think this might be a good idea becomes, this is the right direction. Just wanted to say, becomes silence. Notice how authority shifts when words are reduced. Another key principle is this. If a sentence doesn't move the message forward, cut it. Professionals edit themselves in real time. They feel when a point has landed, and then they stop. They don't chase reactions. They don't fill the gap. They allow the message to do its work. This is especially important in tense situations. When emotions rise, most people talk more. Professionals talk less. They slow down. They choose one clear statement. They deliver it calmly. That calmness becomes the strongest signal in the room. Because calm speech under pressure communicates control, and control is influence. This chapter is not about becoming quiet. It's about becoming deliberate. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the container for it. When you use fewer words, each one matters more. Each pause feels intentional. Each sentence carries weight, and people notice. They may not remember everything you said, but they will remember how it felt when you spoke. That feeling is authority, and authority is built not by talking more, but by saying exactly what needs to be said, and nothing else. Chapter 5. Master Tone. Before content. Most people obsess over what they are going to say. They polish arguments. They search for the right words. They rehearse explanations. And then they deliver all of it in the wrong tone. When that happens, content becomes irrelevant. Tone is the first message people receive. Long before your words are processed, your tone has already decided how they feel about you. Professionals understand this instinctively. They know that tone sets the emotional frame of every interaction, and whoever controls the frame controls the conversation. You can say the right thing in the wrong tone and lose authority instantly. You can say a simple thing in the right tone and gain influence without effort. Tone answers questions before words do. Are you calm or reactive? Are you grounded or defensive? Are you leading or seeking approval? People respond to those signals automatically. This is why 2 people can say the same sentence and get completely different reactions. Tone is not about being soft, and it is not about being harsh. It is about being controlled. Professionals aim for calm, steady, and deliberate. Calm tone signals confidence. Steady tone signals self-command. Deliberate tone signals intention. Together, they create authority. Most people lose control of tone because they speak while emotionally activated. Their body reacts before their mind settles. Their voice rises. Their pace accelerates. Their sentences tighten. They don't notice it happening, but everyone else does. A rushed tone communicates anxiety. A sharp tone communicates threat. A defensive tone communicates weakness. None of these inspire trust. Professionals treat tone as a tool, not an accident. They regulate it the same way they regulate breathing or posture. They slow down intentionally. They lower volume slightly. They allow pauses, not to sound dramatic, but to sound composed. Composure is persuasive. There is a reason calm people dominate tense rooms. They don't absorb the chaos. They contrast it. That contrast pulls attention toward them. Tone is also how you protect your message. When tone is calm, content can be direct. When tone is unstable, even gentle content feels aggressive. This is why professionals often sound neutral even when making strong points. They let clarity do the work. They don't push emotion into the listener. They create space for the listener to process. That space is influence. Another mistake people make is matching tone. If someone becomes emotional, they respond emotionally. If someone becomes aggressive, they mirror aggression. This feels natural. It feels justified. It is also a loss of control. Professionals do not mirror tone. They set it. They understand that emotional escalation never increases authority. It only increases noise. When someone raises their voice, professionals lower theirs. When someone rushes, they slow down. When someone pushes, they pause. That shift resets the interaction. Tone leadership is subtle, but it is powerful. People instinctively follow emotional stability. This does not mean suppressing emotion completely. It means choosing how emotion is expressed. You can be firm without being sharp. You can be serious without being tense. You can be passionate without being frantic. Tone is where that balance lives. Here is a practical awareness exercise. The next time you speak, notice 3 things: your pace, your volume, your pauses. If your pace is fast, slow it down. If your volume is high, lower it slightly. If you avoid pauses, insert one. These small adjustments radically change how your words are received. You don't need to sound confident. You need to sound settled. Another critical insight is this: tone reveals how much control you feel internally. If you feel rushed inside, your tone will rush. If you feel uncertain inside, your tone will soften. If you feel threatened inside, your tone will sharpen. Professionals don't wait to feel calm. They act calm first. Behavior leads emotion, not the other way around. When you slow your tone, your nervous system follows. When you lower your volume, tension decreases. When you pause, clarity returns. Tone is regulation in action. This is why mastering tone also masters pressure. In difficult conversations, tone matters more than logic. People remember how they felt long after they forget what was said. A calm tone under pressure communicates strength without force. It tells others you are not shaken, and that message travels fast. One more important distinction: tone is not monotone. Being calm does not mean being flat. Professionals vary tone intentionally. They emphasize key points. They slow down at moments that matter. They allow silence to underline meaning, but the baseline remains steady. No spikes, no emotional leakage, no loss of control. This chapter is about reclaiming vocal authority. Your voice is an instrument. If you don't train it, it will play whatever emotion happens to be loudest. When you train tone, your words gain credibility automatically. People feel safer listening to you. They feel less need to resist. They feel more willingness to follow. Because tone answers a fundamental question for the listener: is this person in control? When the answer is yes, influence becomes natural. Master tone first. Content will take care of itself. Chapter 6. Think from the listener's mind. Most people speak from their own perspective. They focus on what they want to say, what they want to express, what they want to prove. Their attention stays inward. Professionals shift their attention outward. They think from the listener's mind. This is one of the most decisive differences between communication that feels heavy and communication that moves people. Influence does not come from self-expression. It comes from alignment. When you speak only from your own point of view, you force others to translate your message. They must ask themselves why it matters, how it affects them, what they are supposed to do with it. Most won't bother. Professionals remove that friction before it appears. They don't ask, "How do I explain this?" They ask, "How will this be received?" That question changes everything. The listener's mind is not neutral, it is busy, distracted, defensive, and constantly filtering for relevance. If your message does not quickly answer the listener's silent question, "Why should I care?" it loses momentum. This is why so many intelligent people fail to influence. They deliver accurate information that never lands. Accuracy is not enough. Relevance is required. Professionals respect the listener's attention. They know it is limited and valuable, so they structure their message around the listener's priorities, not their own enthusiasm. This does not mean manipulation. It means empathy with discipline. Thinking from the listener's mind requires you to step outside your own urgency, to pause your need to be understood, and to meet the other person where they already are. Most people speak to relieve internal pressure. Professionals speak to create external movement. That difference is subtle, but powerful. Here is a common mistake. People explain their reasoning before establishing relevance. They start with background, context, and logic. By the time they reach the point, the listener is already disengaged. Professionals reverse the order. They lead with meaning. They make the listener feel oriented first. Then they provide explanation only if needed. This is why their communication feels efficient. They do not overload. They guide. Another key shift is this. Professionals do not assume interest. They earn it. They know that no one owes them attention. So they design their message to respect the listener's reality. That reality includes fears, incentives, resistance, and limited time. When you speak from the listener's mind, you naturally simplify. You remove unnecessary detail. You emphasize outcomes over process. Because listeners care about impact before logic. This does not mean logic is unimportant. It means timing matters. Emotion decides whether logic is allowed in. Professionals also anticipate friction points. They know where resistance might arise, but instead of defending preemptively, they acknowledge perspective. They might say, "From your side, this may seem unnecessary." That single sentence disarms resistance. Why? Because the listener feels seen. Being seen creates openness. Openness creates influence. Most people try to overcome resistance by pushing harder. Professionals soften first. They understand that resistance is rarely about content. It is about feeling unheard or threatened. When you think from the listener's mind, your tone changes. Your pace adjusts. Your word choices shift. You stop sounding like someone delivering information. You start sounding like someone guiding a decision. That distinction matters. Another important element is expectation. Listeners constantly predict where your message is going. If they feel lost, they disengage. If they feel oriented, they stay. Professionals manage expectation deliberately. They use signposts, they clarify direction, they make the listener feel safe inside the structure. Phrases like, "Here's the main point," or "What matters most is this," are not filler, they are anchors. They reduce cognitive load. When the listener doesn't have to guess, they can focus. Thinking from the listener's mind also requires humility. You must accept that your idea is not automatically important to others. That acceptance frees you from ego-driven communication. You stop trying to impress, you start trying to connect. Connection is the gateway to influence. Here is a practical exercise. Before speaking, ask yourself 3 questions. What does this person care about right now? What might they be worried about? What outcome would feel useful to them? Let those answers shape your message. Not your preferences, not your emotions, their reality. You don't need to change your principles. You change your entry point. Professionals rarely start where they want to start. They start where the listener can hear. That is strategic empathy. Another discipline professionals practice is restraint. They resist the urge to say everything they know. They choose what matters most to the listener in that moment. That choice is influence. This chapter is about shifting the center of gravity. When communication revolves around you, it feels heavy. When it revolves around the listener, it feels effortless. People lean toward messages that feel relevant. They follow voices that feel attuned. Influence is not forcing others to adopt your perspective. It is guiding them from theirs. When you consistently think from the listener's mind, your words stop bouncing off resistance. They start moving people, and movement is the true measure of influence. Chapter 7. Remove weak language. Completely. Every conversation contains hidden signals, not in what you say, but in how you say it. Weak language quietly erodes authority. It doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as politeness, humility, or caution. And most people use it without realizing the cost. Professionals eliminate weak language completely. Not because they want to sound dominant, but because they understand that language reveals how much responsibility you are willing to carry. Weak language creates escape routes. Strong language creates direction. Phrases like, I think, maybe, kind of, just, a bit, I'm not sure, but, feel harmless. They sound considerate. They sound soft, but they signal doubt before anyone has questioned you. When you use weak language, you lower the value of your own message. You invite others to override, interrupt, or dismiss you. You frame your ideas as optional before they are even examined. Professionals don't do that. They speak with ownership. This does not mean being rude or aggressive. It means removing unnecessary self-discounting. Consider the difference. I think this might be the right approach versus this is the right approach. The content may be identical. The impact is not. The first sentence asks for permission. The second establishes direction. People respond differently because they are wired to follow certainty. Weak language also shows up in overqualification. People pile disclaimers before making a point. They apologize in advance. They lower expectations to protect themselves from criticism. This is a fear response, not a communication strategy. Professionals do not pre-apologize for clarity. They trust their thinking enough to let it stand. Another form of weak language is unnecessary politeness that blurs meaning. People soften messages so much that the point disappears. They say, it might be helpful if we considered possibly adjusting, instead of saying, we need to change this. The intention may be kindness. The result is confusion. Clarity is not unkind. Ambiguity is. Professionals understand that respect comes from being clear, not from being vague. Weak language also increases under pressure. When stakes rise, people hedge. They leave themselves room to retreat. Professionals do the opposite. Pressure is when language must become cleaner, not softer. They reduce sentences. They remove qualifiers. They state facts. This steadiness communicates control. Another subtle weakness appears in excessive explanation. People justify their statements repeatedly. They add context after context to avoid pushback. That behavior signals insecurity. Strong communicators state the point and allow silence. They let others respond. Silence forces engagement. Over-explaining removes it. Professionals trust that if clarification is needed, it will be requested. They don't fill space out of nervousness. One of the most important shifts you can make is removing verbal shrinking. Words like just and only shrink the importance of what follows. I just wanted to ask. This is only a suggestion. You are minimizing your own contribution before it is evaluated. Professionals don't shrink their presence. They don't inflate it either. They present it as it is. Neutral, clear, owned. Strong language does not exaggerate. It does not perform. It does not beg. It states. Another key insight: weak language trains others to challenge you. When you sound unsure, people test boundaries. They interrupt. They push back harder. When you sound grounded, resistance softens. Not because people agree, but because they sense stability. Stability creates psychological safety, and safety opens the door to influence. Here is a simple exercise. For one day, pay attention to your qualifiers. Every time you say, "I think," pause. Ask yourself if it is necessary. Sometimes it is, often it is not. Replace "I think" with silence or with a clear statement. Notice how the conversation shifts. Another practice is removing filler at the beginning of sentences. No just, no kind of, no maybe. Start clean. The first words you speak set the tone. Professionals also avoid excessive emotional softening. They don't preface statements with their feelings unless it adds value. "I feel like we should" becomes "we should." Emotion can be shared later. Direction comes first. This chapter is not about becoming rigid or cold. It is about becoming precise. Precision creates trust. When people know you mean what you say, they listen differently. They stop scanning for weakness. They start engaging with substance. Weak language hides responsibility. Strong language accepts it. And influence always belongs to those willing to carry responsibility. When you remove weak language, your words stop wobbling. Your sentences land cleanly. Your presence stabilizes. You don't need louder volume. You don't need stronger emotion. You don't need better arguments. You need cleaner language. Because when language is clean, authority becomes natural. And when authority is natural, influence follows without effort. Chapter 8. Pause is a power move. Most people fear silence. They treat it as a mistake, a gap, or a sign that something went wrong. So the moment a pause appears, they rush to fill it. Professionals do the opposite. They use silence deliberately. A pause is not empty. It is charged. It signals control, confidence, and awareness. And when used correctly, it becomes one of the strongest tools of influence you can develop. People who rush their words give away power without noticing. They speak quickly to avoid judgment. They explain to avoid misunderstanding. They keep talking to avoid discomfort. In doing so, they surrender the rhythm of the conversation. Professionals never surrender rhythm. They set it. The person who controls the pace controls the interaction, and pace is controlled through pauses. When you pause before speaking, you signal that you are thinking, not reacting. When you pause after speaking, you signal that your words deserve space. That space forces others to process. Silence creates gravity. Think about moments when someone answered a question too quickly. The response often feels rehearsed or defensive. Now think about someone who paused, then spoke slowly and clearly. The second response feels more considered, even if the content is simple. That difference is not intelligence, it is timing. Professionals understand that speed often communicates anxiety. Slowness communicates control. This does not mean speaking slowly all the time. It means choosing when to slow down. A pause before a key sentence increases its impact. A pause after a strong statement lets it land. A pause during tension resets the emotional temperature of the room. Most people try to manage tension by talking more. Professionals manage tension by pausing. This is especially important in disagreement. When challenged, most people rush to defend. They interrupt. They respond before the other person has finished. That urgency weakens their position. Professionals pause. They let the challenge sit. They allow the emotional wave to pass. Then they respond from clarity, not reflex. That pause changes everything. It signals that you are not threatened. It signals that you are not scrambling. It signals confidence without a single word. Silence also exposes insecurity in others. When you stop talking, the other person often feels compelled to fill the gap. They reveal more. They clarify their position. They sometimes weaken their own argument. Professionals don't rush to rescue others from silence. They let it work. Another powerful use of pause is after asking a question. Most people ask a question and then immediately explain it, rephrase it, or soften it. They don't trust the question to stand on its own. Professionals ask the question, then they wait. That wait signals seriousness. It tells the other person the question matters, and it invites a more thoughtful response. Pauses also protect you from saying too much. When you pause, you give yourself a moment to assess. Do I need to say more? Has the point landed? Often, the answer is no. Silence prevents over-explaining. It keeps your message sharp. Many people believe that silence makes them look unsure. The truth is the opposite. Uncontrolled talking reveals uncertainty. Controlled silence reveals confidence. Professionals are comfortable being the quietest person in the room. They don't equate influence with airtime. They know that presence is felt, not measured in words. Pausing also regulates your nervous system. When pressure rises, the body wants to rush. The voice tightens. The breath shortens. A pause interrupts that pattern. It slows your breathing. It grounds your posture. It brings your mind back online. That physiological reset is not optional. It is essential. Without it, you speak from stress. With it, you speak from control. Here is a simple practice. Before responding to any question, count silently to 2. Not out loud, not visibly. Just enough to reset. That small delay dramatically improves tone, clarity, and authority. Another practice is the closing pause. After delivering an important point, stop. Do not add a follow-up sentence. Do not soften it. Do not explain it again. Let the silence underline your words. You may feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is a sign you are breaking an old habit. Over time, that pause will feel natural. Professionals are not afraid of being misunderstood temporarily. They know that clarity emerges through structure and restraint. They don't chase immediate validation. Pauses also signal respect. They show that you are considering the other person's presence, that you are not performing, that you are not rushing to dominate. That respect builds trust, and trust multiplies influence. This chapter is not about becoming quiet. It is about becoming intentional. Silence used unconsciously is awkward. Silence used deliberately is powerful. When you learn to pause, your words gain weight. Your tone stabilizes. Your presence deepens. People start listening differently. They stop waiting for you to finish. They start paying attention. Because silence changes the texture of communication. It slows time, it sharpens focus, it creates meaning. Master the pause and you master the moment. Not by force, not by volume, but by control. And control, when calm and deliberate, is the purest form of influence. Chapter 9. Influence. Without forcing. Most people misunderstand influence. They believe it is about persuasion, pressure, or making others agree. So they push harder, they repeat their point, they escalate emotion, and the more they push, the more resistance they create. Professionals understand a deeper truth. Real influence does not force, it attracts. When you force a message, people instinctively push back. Not because they disagree, but because they feel controlled. Human beings protect autonomy by default. Influence fails the moment autonomy feels threatened. This is why calm, grounded communicators often influence more than aggressive ones. They don't try to win. They allow alignment to happen. Professionals never chase agreement. They present clarity and let others choose. That choice is the key. When people feel they chose an idea, they commit to it. When they feel pushed, they resist, even if the idea is good. Influence without forcing begins with detachment from outcome. This does not mean indifference. It means you are not emotionally dependent on immediate acceptance. When you need agreement, your tone tightens. Your words press. Your presence loses ease. People sense that need instantly. Professionals release it. They trust the strength of their message. They trust the intelligence of the listener. They trust timing. Timing is often more powerful than argument. Another reason forcing fails is that it turns conversation into a contest. Once people feel they are being convinced, they defend their position. They stop listening. They start protecting identity. Professionals avoid triggering that reflex. They frame ideas as invitations, not ultimatums. They state direction without demanding compliance. For example, instead of saying, "This is the only way," they say, "Here's the direction that solves the problem." Same clarity. Less pressure. Pressure creates friction. Friction creates heat. Heat creates resistance. Influence works best in calm conditions. Professionals also understand that people rarely change their minds in the moment. Influence often works quietly after the conversation ends. That is why they don't overtalk. They don't flood the listener with reasons. They plant a clear idea and step back. That space allows the idea to settle. Another important element is respect. Forcing assumes the other person is wrong and needs to be corrected. Influence assumes the other person is capable of thinking. That assumption changes tone completely. When you respect someone's agency, they feel safe considering your perspective. Safety invites openness. Professionals also avoid emotional hooks. They don't use guilt, fear, or urgency unless absolutely necessary. Those tools may get compliance, but they damage trust, and trust is the currency of long-term influence. Short-term wins created by force often lead to long-term resistance. Professionals think long-term. They are willing to lose an argument to win alignment later. That patience is a form of strength. Another key aspect of non-forcing influence is clarity of boundaries. Paradoxically, when you are clear about what you will and will not accept, you need less persuasion. Boundaries reduce negotiation. They signal self-respect. People respond to that. For example, saying, "This is what I'm willing to do," is more influential than arguing endlessly about possibilities. Clarity invites decision. Professionals also know when to stop talking. They recognize the moment when additional words stop helping. At that point, silence becomes more persuasive than speech. Silence allows the listener to take ownership of the idea. Forcing steals that ownership. Another common mistake is trying to convince emotionally resistant people with logic. Logic cannot bypass emotion. Professionals address emotional state first, through tone, pacing, and respect. Before presenting ideas, they don't argue with resistance. They soften it. Sometimes influence is simply staying calm while others react. That contrast makes people reconsider their own position. Calm is disarming. This chapter is about surrendering control over others while strengthening control over yourself. You cannot force influence. You can only create conditions where it naturally emerges. Those conditions include clarity without pressure, confidence without ego, direction without demand. When you speak from that place, people feel free, not cornered. Freedom increases cooperation. Professionals understand that the strongest influence often feels like nothing happened at all. No push, no struggle, no drama, just a shift. People walk away thinking they arrived at the idea themselves. That is not manipulation, it is respect combined with clarity. Influence without forcing also preserves relationships. It keeps communication clean. It avoids unnecessary conflict, and over time it builds a reputation. People begin to trust your presence. They seek your perspective. They listen more closely when you speak. Not because you push, but because you don't have to. This chapter is an invitation to release the urge to control outcomes, to trust your principles, to trust your delivery, and to trust that influence grows strongest in calm soil. When you stop forcing, your words breathe, your presence relaxes, and your influence becomes effortless. That effortlessness is the mark of true mastery. Chapter 10. Train this daily. Like a skill, influence is not a personality trait. It is not something you are born with or without. It is a skill, and like every real skill, it only becomes reliable through daily training. Most people treat communication as something that should work automatically. They assume that if they understand something, they should be able to express it. When it fails, they blame nerves, personality, or circumstance. Professionals never do that. They understand that clear thinking, controlled speech, and calm influence are built the same way physical strength is built, through repetition. Not occasional effort, not moments of inspiration, daily practice. The mistake most people make is trying to change everything at once. They want instant transformation. They consume content, they take notes, they feel motivated, and then nothing changes. Because skills are not built by understanding, they are built by behavior. Professionals focus on small, repeatable actions. They train their communication the same way they train discipline, quietly, consistently, without drama. They don't wait for important moments to practice. They practice in ordinary conversations. Every interaction becomes a training ground. A short response instead of a long explanation. A pause instead of a reaction. A clear statement instead of a softened one. These moments seem insignificant. They are not. They compound. Influence is not built in high-stakes situations. It is revealed there. It is built in low-stakes moments, day after day. Another critical distinction professionals understand is this. You don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training. Under pressure, you will not suddenly become calm, clear, and composed if you have not practiced being that way when pressure was low. Daily training removes reliance on mood. You don't need to feel confident to speak clearly. You don't need to feel calm to slow your pace. You act first. The feeling follows. Professionals design simple rules for themselves. Rules that require no motivation. Rules like 1 point per response. No filler words. Pause before answering. Stop talking when the message is delivered. These rules run automatically over time. They remove decision fatigue. They create consistency. Consistency builds trust. Another important element of training is feedback. Professionals observe themselves without judgment. They notice when they rushed. They notice when they over-explained. They notice when they softened unnecessarily. Not to criticize, to correct. Self-awareness without action is useless. Action without awareness is blind. Training requires both. One powerful practice is post-conversation review. After an interaction, ask yourself 3 questions. Did I stay clear? Did I stay calm? Did I stop on time? That's it. No overthinking, no analysis, just adjustment. Professionals also train restraint. They resist the urge to speak when it adds no value. They allow others to talk. They let silence exist. This restraint strengthens presence. People begin to associate your voice with intention, not noise. Another discipline is consistency across contexts. Professionals do not speak one way in authority settings and another way everywhere else. They don't switch personas. They practice the same clarity in casual conversations, emails, meetings, and disagreements. This creates alignment. Alignment builds identity. Over time, you stop trying to sound confident. You simply sound like yourself, but sharper, calmer, and more grounded. This is when influence becomes natural. Not forced, not performed, just present. Daily training also includes managing mental energy. Professionals protect their clarity. They avoid unnecessary arguments. They limit emotional entanglement. They choose when to engage. Influence requires mental space. If your mind is cluttered, your communication will be too. That is why professionals value simplicity. Fewer words, fewer reactions, fewer commitments. This simplicity creates room for precision. Another key aspect is patience. Skills do not show results immediately. You may feel awkward at first. Pauses may feel uncomfortable. Shorter responses may feel incomplete. That discomfort is temporary. It is the sign of a habit breaking. Professionals do not retreat at this stage. They stay consistent because they know something most people forget. Comfort is not a reliable guide. Progress often feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. This chapter is about committing to mastery without spectacle. No announcements, no external validation, just daily execution. Influence is not built by convincing others. It is built by becoming someone whose presence is trusted. That trust comes from predictability, from clarity, from calm. Train these skills every day, not for applause, not for approval, but for command over your own mind and voice. When thinking becomes disciplined, speech becomes precise. When speech becomes precise, influence becomes effortless. And when influence is effortless, you no longer need to prove anything. You simply speak. And people listen. Influence is not a trick you turn on when it matters. It is the natural outcome of how you think, how you speak, and how you carry yourself every day. Throughout this audiobook, one truth has repeated itself in different forms. You do not influence others by trying harder. You influence others by becoming clearer. Clear thinking creates stable speech. Stable speech creates trust, and trust is what people follow. Most people spend their lives chasing reactions. They want approval, they want agreement, they want to be understood immediately. Professionals choose a different path. They build internal order first. They train their inner dialogue. They speak from structure instead of emotion. They use fewer words, master their tone, respect the listener's mind, remove weak language, and understand the power of pause. They influence without forcing. And they train these skills daily, quietly, without needing validation. None of this is accidental. Influence is not about being louder than others. It is about being steadier. In a world full of noise, steadiness stands out. In conversations full of opinions, principles stand out. In moments of pressure, calm control stands out. You do not need to dominate rooms to lead them. You do not need to impress people to influence them. And you do not need to speak more to be heard. You need discipline. Discipline in thinking, discipline in language, discipline in timing. When your thinking is disciplined, you stop reacting. When your language is disciplined, you stop leaking authority. When your timing is disciplined, you stop chasing outcomes. This is where influence becomes effortless. People begin to trust your presence. They listen more closely when you speak. They feel guided rather than pushed. Not because you control them, but because you control yourself. That is the highest form of influence. Remember this. Every conversation trains you for the next one. Every pause strengthens your presence. Every clear sentence reinforces your authority. Nothing here requires talent. Nothing here requires charisma. And nothing here depends on personality. It depends on practice. You may feel awkward at first. Shorter responses may feel incomplete. Silence may feel uncomfortable. Calm delivery may feel unnatural. That is normal. Growth rarely feels smooth at the beginning, but consistency turns effort into identity. Over time, clarity becomes automatic. Tone stabilizes without thought. Pauses appear naturally. Words land with weight. You stop trying to influence. You simply do. And that is when people start following, not because you demand attention, but because your presence earns it. Carry these principles with you. Practice them in ordinary moments. Apply them when stakes are low. Trust them when pressure is high. Influence is not something you perform, it is something you embody. When your mind is clear, your voice becomes steady. When your voice is steady, your words gain authority. When your words gain authority, people listen. And when people listen, influence is no longer something you chase. It becomes who you are.